in Hartford, and that was how I found out so much about.
Oh, really? You did a bit of grave digging yourself.
And this is quite interesting too.
Doesn't it?
You'll be a bit muddled before you finish. Now, Caroline Foskett, her mother and father were Chamberlain. Their name was Chamberlain. Well, now, her grandfather was a bookbinder and printer. And when I was in Hartford and went to see the death certificate of our grandmother and see all the graves of the family, I knew as soon as I entered the Lich Gate I was in the right place. Both sides of the footpath going in are Fosketts and Chamberlains and the old names. And you couldn't mistake that I felt as though, I've come home amongst all my, antecedents. Anyway, that grandfather was a bookbinder and printer. Well, when he asked me how long ago it would have been, and I said it would be just about 100 years, I think, since this antecedent of mine died. He went to a cupboard that had a whole lot of these beautifully bound books in them, pulled 3 out, and it was in the second one he showed me. And so it was that near.
That's good.
So I said to him, "What beautiful paper." I said, "That's vellum paper." He said, "Yes." And I said, "The books are so beautifully bound, and the writing," I said, "the writing's copperplate." Now, Poity wrote copperplate. That's my father. I've got some of his writing I can show you someday.
But he did have lessons.
Yes, I know, but still he wrote beautifully. But he said yes. And he said, "I'll tell you something else. It was probably this woman's father who printed and made these books, because he said he's been doing this for years and is very well known in Hartford. Even after the time, he said he was very well known." So that's interesting.
Yes.
Well, now there's another one. Where does the apothecary come in?
Well, he was, Lord.
It was on Grandma's side, I think. I don't think it was the one, it wasn't on the Austin side.
No, I think it must have been Grandma's
Yes.
side.
Well, it might have been Grandfather Foskett's father. Now, he was what they called an apothecary. Now, in the old days, that was a man who was allowed to prescribe medicines, as well as being a druggist. He could prescribe medicines and drugs, and minor cases, he was like a half a doctor, half a chemist. And that was what he was. Now, Uncle Hartley, and if ever you get the chance, he would show it to you, I'm sure. He was Grandma, or it wasn't Grandma, it was Auntie Amy. She had it. She presented to him the bowl that this relative far back had used as an apothecary, and the pestle, to do all his drugs and that. And it still looks as good as new, or it did the last time
How long
I saw
ago
it.
would that been when you used it?
Over 100 years. Well, Uncle Hartley has that. There's so many little incidents that we could tell you that you would be interested
Well, Uncle
in.
Hartley became he's a doctor.
And he's a doctor. And see, Porty wanted to be a doctor, but his people those days couldn't afford to put him through, and he became, said, in the insurance company.
From what I hear, my dad wanted to be a doctor too.
Did he?
Or a dentist or something. And Graham wanted to be a doctor.
Yes, that's quite right.
Graham did 2 years, and then he found that he didn't want to go further with medicine. So,
Sorry, down to George. My dad, Henry George, going backwards.
Going backwards,
Who did he
Henry.
marry into?
George Austin married Caroline Foskett. That George.
F-O-S-K-E.
F-O-S-K-E. Double T,
No,
isn't it?
one T.
One T, isn't it?
I see. And after that?
Before that, it was, his father was also George. And he married Elizabeth Rofe. And that's as far back as I can go there.
Let's look at that.
R-O-F-E.
G-R-O-F-E.
Not E-R.
I didn't say it.
Oh, I thought you said E-R.
Was that in England or Australia where George married?
They were married in England.
Whereabouts in England?
Benenden.
B-N-E-N-D-E-N.
Whereabouts there?
That's down near Canterbury somewhere. I'm going to get myself an atlas to look these up. I don't think it's very far from Rolvenden, where the other branches of the family came from. The Millgates, and not the Millgates. Yes, that's right, the Millgates.
So it was George and Elizabeth Rofe?
Yeah, Rofe, R-O-F-E.
They came out to Australia, did they?
No.
No.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. That was Grandpa Austin's mother and father.
Yes, but oh, wait a minute.
Yes, they came out to Australia.
But their name was Austin. Her single name was Rofe.
Yeah.
Yes, well, that's what we said.
Yeah. And what did George do as a job?
The last George,
Yeah, or the first
well,
George.
he was a bit of a, I don't know what happened, but at one time he had a jeweller's shop. See, he had to make a fresh start when he came to Australia.
Why did he come to Australia? That's what I'm asking, I suppose.
Well, I suppose he wanted to, I don't know.
You don't know?
We don't know much about him, he goes back too far.
And all we can't ask the aunties, they've all gone.
They've all gone. But I can tell you one thing that Father used to tell us, that it didn't matter what job he took, and for a while until he got his jeweller's shop, he had to take different jobs naturally when he came. He was never seen in anything but his long top coat and a top hat. And even, it didn't matter what work he was doing, he was always dressed like that.
That's
So-
very upper class sort of gear, isn't it? That's upper class?
Well,
Was he from the
we
upper
don't
class?
know, but he was a gentleman. But I should think, by the way, he had to change that he had to work hard when he first came out, because he managed to get a jeweller's shop, and it was the corner of King Street. Well, it's a long, long time. Well, of course, there is a jeweller's shop now at one of the corners of King Street, but that wouldn't be it, because it was just a small jeweller's shop. Well, then he sold that. He sold that, and he bought a farm up in Emus Plains, and that's where his son George Austin was born at Emus Plains. Well, then his mother died, and we don't know exactly what happened to the father. He came to Sydney and had some jobs there, because he left his little son with this aunt.
The original George, he must have had some sort of jewellery training, maybe.
Well, we think so, but we really don't.
No, right.
No, we really don't know.
About what time did he and Elizabeth Rofe come out to Australia?
It was in 17 something, wasn't it?
Well, 1870.
1870.
1870.
1870 or 79.
Yes, some days like that.
Something like that.
And they came to
No,
Australia.
1879.
And what religion were they? You know?
Well, they talk about the vicar and the parish church, so I presume Church of England.
That was the
England.
yeah.
But after they came out here, they joined up with Church of Christ. And it was all But father and mother, they were Wesleyan, because mother came from a Wesleyan family, and they were Wesleyan for right along. But we, of course, such a lot of us now at Church of England.
Oh, can we just take in that religious strain again? Because there does seem to be a heavy sort of religious thread in the tapestry. You know what I mean?
The which?
There seems to be a pronounced religious
Oh,
thread.
there always has
Yeah,
been.
in the Oxford. So George was C of E, his son George. Do you know anything about the religious life?
Yes, he was a very good living man. Wasn't he, Grandpa? A very good living man, and a very, very gentlemanly. But I think they followed the congregational. I think they were congregational, until they, when they came to Newtown to live, which was after they sold to the government, had to sell the dairy. Then the government persuaded Grandfather they gave him a big job in the railways. Not a big job, but a job.
And he worked at Everett where Uncle Peter worked for a while.
So, that's incredible, isn't it? Peter came to work in the railway. And then this medical
Yes,
thing.
that's right. It seems to follow right through. But they...
But Peter was only temporarily there.
Yes.
But he made a career out of the railway.
Yes,
Oh,
he did.
eventually, yes.
And so that's the story. And they, after they left had to leave the dairy, they went to live in Alice Street, Newtown, in a big two-story place. And did we love to go there as kids? They had mulberry trees
They
and all
had a
sorts of
huge
things.
kitchen.
Oh, yes.
Auntie Amy, the second daughter, there was Auntie Eva and Auntie Amy, those are the two, then came my father. Well, Auntie Amy was a wonderful woman, needle woman. She used to make all their frocks, I'll show you some of them. And she was a wonderful cook. She was good at anything, really.
Yes.
And they had...
But she cooked for all that family.
They had a huge kitchen.
Is the house still there?
I think so. And I've never heard that it was pulled down, have you?
Which, Alice Street?
Yes.
No, I think it's still there.
Anyway, yes, they had this long table, and there was a big form went along, because they had to speak to the 12 children, and 10 children, and mother and father. And I remember when they put on the form against the wall, they had all their meals there. And you looked in the sitting room, as it was known then, and I remember peeping in, all you could see, all the phones that were covered over this white cover. You know, they were kept so... Yes, and it was only used for when they had special guests or when they had a party.
Now, there was Henry.
Henry. He was one of the children.
Well, look.
One of the children. I said, well, George owned the house.
George.
Now, what did he do for a job?
He was the one who had the dairy.
And then
had to sell it to the government.
Yes.
And they did him a good price for it, and he bought this house in Newtown.
And worked on the railway.
And he took a job on the railway.
And then his son was Henry.
Henry George.
Now, what religious...
Methodist.
That's when the revival came about. You know, the Wesleyan...
Well, he was Wesleyan, really. But,
well,
yes, it's the same thing.
But
they joined up
you don't think about that? I mean, changing from... Why did he become a Methodist?
Because he married my mother, who was a Methodist.
Ah, the moon. Right.
And when he first met her, he went up to their church instead of going to the congregation and sang in the choir.
Really?
Yes, that was how he came to, and we were all, with the exception of most of us, were christened in the Methodist Church. But
and as children we went to the Methodist Church till we left Dulwich Hill. I was about 13 or 14, and then we went out to Slovenia, and there was only church once a month. We didn't go to church much, I'm afraid, then. And then when we came up to live in Marrickville, we went to the Church of England.
that's another thing. Mother was very... there was nothing narrow about her, although she regarded herself as Wesleyan. When we were tiny children, she always sent us to the nearest church where we didn't have to cross a road, to Sunday school. And that was when we first went to a Church of England. And that was when we lived at Marrickville, and we went to St. Clement's. And we were there for some years. And as a matter of fact, it was coming near the time, and we were making up our minds to be confirmed. But however, we moved before that happened. And but from then on, we used to go to the Church of England quite a lot. Well then.